be far more interesting for the stock markets and people like us. So actually, I had little reservations on this total lockdown, not so much on the social distancing. Of course, Corona, I have no expertise. So whatever is right for the medical reasons, that has to be done, that has to be done. But the impact of a lockdown point, complete lockdown on the businesses, manufacturing, services, going to offices, essential services, logistics. I think 15 days back or 20 days back, we were apprehensive of how things will this thing and how deep will be the damage. But now after 21 days, everybody in government knows what exactly it means to be locked down. So now they have data, they have access, they can talk to anybody, they understand the difficulties. So I think the worst of the crisis is over, and they are more than willing to help wherever it is required to be opening up or help coming to daily wages or the logistics or essential supplies or manufacturing or exports, whatever is required. I think that will happen now. From here onwards, all the people who are people like us who are worried about what is how deep is going to be damage to the economy. I think that part will be taken care of in the best possible way by the government. So clearly, in the speech also, there was some mention of all these problems about the logistics and the daily wage earners difficulties. So my sense is that from here onwards, we will see much more level-headed, what do you call, lockdowning of the whole system, and hence, in fact, I would say that gradual opening up in a disciplined way will happen. And I was listening to Nestle guy who was speaking immediately after the PM's speech, and he was saying the same thing. I mean, they have to be close to the farmers, and he was saying that there is no need for panic buying because now logistic support is so good that all the stuff will be provided adequately through the system. There will be some difficulties, but he was very clear that the logistic gap which was there 7-10 days back will not be there. So clearly things will start improving, and mm, and the markets have given its own, that panic, the fear of complete breakdown, that kind of panic correction in the markets have happened, and that was more to do with the global, kind of everything happened where foreigners particularly they panicked because what happened in Italy and more particularly in US, and then all the global wealth is being managed from US. So all ETFs and fund managers they started selling, and hence all over the world in all the stock markets there was simultaneous selling by all the institutions. Then there was a bigger thing was the collapse of the oil. I mean, at least in my 40 years, I have not seen oil consumption worldwide contracting by anywhere between 25 to 35%. I mean, just think of the size of the correction, even if it is for 2 or 3 months or 4 months. $100 million, 100 million barrels per day, and the consumption goes down by, nobody has any clue. Every week I'm hearing, first they talked about 10%, they talked about 20%, and now I'm hearing 35% consumption drop in the global oil consumption. That's what I hear from the global press. Now, because of lockdown, whether it is 35% or 40%, that only time will tell. But clearly, there is a massive drop in the consumption. The consumption drop, even worst of the time in 2008 and 2002 and all, had not been more than 1 or 2% or 3% of the global consumption. But this time, this complete lockdown has a very unique kind of problem where it would be it may not be very prolonged problem per se, maybe 3 months, 6 months, but human, see, the entire world economy in my mind is designed around the consumers like all of us, and the consumers are 24 by 7. We need to consume things 24 by 7 because we live 24 by 7. So but consumption has to be 24 by 7. It is on, but consumption is made up of two buckets. One is essential and second is discretionary. So essential consumption is broadly 100% on across the people who can afford to consume. And discretionary is something which is gone completely for a toss, whether it is a Indian big fat wedding, or whether it is flying, tourism, all kinds of fashion, fancy food, all sorts of things are completely shut. Now, India is basically economy of essentials. At $2,000 per capita, our I would say essential is about three-fourths, 75%, and discretionary would be about 20-25%. So our impact, I mean, finally, I mean, when this lockdown and everything is over, we'll realize that consumer will come back very quickly, or consumer has never gone out. They would have deferred some consumption, which is very essential. But I think restoring to 75% of the consumption would be very quick. The 25% discretionary part will take a little more time, because consumer behavior is going to be the most important. How fast they'll come back to buying two-wheelers, how fast they'll come to buy four-wheelers, how fast marriages will come back in India. Because this year's marriage are not going to go anywhere. They're all deferred probably for the next season, October, November, December, or something like that. But how fast they come, how big they become, how much people are willing to participate or travel. When will the consumer get confident to travel back to, say, even within India, to Delhi, Calcutta, and all, and then finally the international? I think real sign of full restoration of the world economy will be when the world starts flying from one destination to other. So because every single airline today is bankrupt, and I mean biggest and best of all are bankrupt, because there's no flight and all the costs are standing. So clearly the impact, even in a short while, has been quite deep in the world economy, and world economy more particularly, where the developed economy, which is two-thirds of the world GDP, there the discretionary spend is what is the main. I mean, that is the difference between a developed economy and developing economy, where the discretionary spend is very high. Say America is about $60,000 per capita. So I would think about 90, 80, 85, 90% would be discretionary spend, and only 10, 15%, 20% would be basic necessity of the nation. So their drops, say like Las Vegas, those kind of enterprises, conferences, flying, tourism, international tourism, fancy tourism. So they're all, I mean, I think they've come to completely standstill, and there's something that cannot be restored also. I mean, if you're not gone to some of these things, if you're not consumed today, they cannot be, they're not deferred consumption, they are completely gone. So, and how does it impact the corporations underlying? And another thing is that in US and all, the interest rates have been very low for quite some time. And hence, a lot of these corporations, I'm not talking about Amazon and Microsoft and those kind of 10, 15 front-running corporation, but otherwise, the corporations worldwide are heavily leveraged. They have leveraged even to the extent of buying back their own shares. They have bought back shares with the borrowing. So clearly, it's a very different kind of impact out there. And right now, I would think that it is like a bomb explosion in a house, where there is a massive smoke, massive sound is there, and hence people are shocked that something very bad has happened, and hence market has quickly dropped by 25, 30%, 30, 32%. But nobody knows how many bodies are going to come out of the house, and that assessment of the damage will be known as the time passes. And till, I mean, one of the discussion I was having with some friends, and there we figured out that till a final solution is found, I mean, some kind of antidote is found for killing coronavirus. The fear of coronavirus, see, coronavirus itself might be one, but the fear of coronavirus, which changes the consumer behavior, will continue. So if you keep getting 1,000, 2,000 cases, even in China or India, I mean, if the whole damn thing is not killed or a cure is not found, I don't know how long it will take for the world to find one. And if it takes even 3 months, I mean, that's a very short duration I'm talking about, 3 or 4 months. Then also the damage is going to be quite deep. And how do you restore the dislocation which is happening in the world economy and Indian economy also? That's going to be a big challenge. Now coming back to, so this is one part of what I'm just watching about everywhere, reading everywhere. Second is that what has been the experience in the past. In last 35, 40 years of my in the market, I'm in the market since 1987, and the first experience of this kind of collapse was the post Harshad Mehta bull run. That was in 1992, and any even person like me, that was first time for me, but I could figure out this cannot continue, and hence it collapsed. And the collapse was full royal, 50% from 42, 4300 Sensex, it came down to 23, 2400, and it was a very, very rapid and a high impact kind of a collapse. Then that was very local. I think that was very India specific. It was not worldwide. Then by 2000, the world became much more global. At least stock market became global. We got interconnected through the FIs and software and all. And then when Y2K boom happened in 2000, again it collapsed by almost 50, 60%. From 6,000 Nasdaq, it came down to more like 2,000 or something like that, 2,400 or something like that. So that was a very, again, 50% kind of thing. And we thought that in 2003, we were in wrong business, or, things are not going to come back ever. It was really bad, very bad. I think things are much better right now. And in 2003, it was far worse, and it was a very slow death of the economy. And then this 9/11 happened, and finally markets made bottom at 2,300 Sensex. And from there, the mother of all the bull run happened. The real thing is, we saw one of the worst recession and slowdown, and that laid the foundation for one of the biggest bull run I have ever seen. That was 2003 to 2008 expansion of the world economy, and of course China emerged that time, and in India also we did very well. And so that was one part of it. And then again from there in 2008, it collapsed. And this time the collapse was much bigger because expansion was much bigger. So the collapse was 64% in India at least, and everybody's portfolio suffered. So my journey was like, I started with literally nothing, or about a crore in 1990. It became 30 crores in 92, came down to 10 in 92, so 30 became 10. And then in 2001, the 10 became 100, and then it collapsed to 30 again. And then the 30 became 550, which collapsed to 250. So every time I have seen 3 collapses of more than 50 to 60% kind of thing in my portfolio. And hence, I have realized one thing, that making serious money in the stock market is not about timing, it is about staying in the market. And when you are staying in the market, you have to be part of this 50, 60% correction. There is absolutely no going away. I have not come across one guy who has been able to sell at top and has been able to buy at the bottom. No, even now, while I was talking, while this is on, I know a very dear friend who sold at the top. He was cribbing even before the collapse because markets were expensive, this, that. And he sold at the top, and in the first 10% decline, he went and bought, he went and blew all the money, and he is now, he's crying that he's down 20% from there. And he doesn't know, now he's a bit confused. At least I didn't sell, so I'm peaceful. I'm waiting for 50% correction to happen. And when that is done, if it is not done, then also I'm 100% invested. If it is done, then also I'm 100% invested. For me, it doesn't matter if it goes down by 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%. It doesn't really matter. I'm mentally ready for 60%, mentally ready for 60%. Please don't mistake. I'm not saying that market will correct by 60%. I have no clue. I have no knowledge. I have no knowledge, and I wish our corrections are over and we are happy days are here again. So our fourth call will be only 25%, 30% decline. So, but then I'm mentally ready for 60% correction, and hence, so a lot of people, they ask how much is done. So I would say 2/3 is done, because if you see from 12,000 to 7,600, it's about 39-40%. So now I would say, I will keep it simple, 40, 50 and 60. So I would say 2/3 are done, 1/3 more is to be done. That is another 20% is to be done. It may go down by another 10% from those levels. And then if absolute bad days come, then maybe 20% from 7,500. So maybe 61, 62,000, 6.1, 6.2 kind of thing in Nifty. So you should be mentally ready for those kind of levels, because it is in uncharted territory as far as my understanding goes. But at 60% correction, it is bet the house. I mean, sell everything, sell gold, sell real estate, and buy into stock market. That's the kind of situation it will be. It is much easier for me to say so, looking back, but it is very difficult to execute. So it is, I can't do anything more than 100% of what my net worth is, but I don't time the market. Nobody can time the market. And in fact, the guys who are trying to time the market, they're in far worse condition mentally, psychologically, because every day they are trying to figure out what to buy, what to sell, which is superior, which is inferior, and they'll end up buying crazy things. I did the same thing in 2000. I sold my Infosys right at the top. Let me tell you, I sold at 11,000. I still can't forget. I sold my NIT at 3,400. I sold my Hughes Telecom at 4,300. So there were, because I had gone to Buffett and I had seen what Buffett was saying. So I was inspired by that, but I did the same foolishness. I sold my all these top companies at the top prices, and at 20% lower, I went and bought CompuCom, a software company, at 15p. Because I sold 100p, I bought at 15p. I thought there is no smarter guy there than Ramdev. That CompuCom, I mean, no mistake of the CompuCom. There is no blame to that company. The company is at 2 rupees or something, and Infosys back to where it was. So, this is when you time and you try to buy, you try to be smarter in the market. This is the punishment of being smart at this thing. The whole damn thing gone. Whatever money I had 40 crores worth of Infosys. I sold it 40 crores and it became zero. So what's the fun? It is better to stay with the good companies which you bought in good time and see the correction. It is part of the deal in investing. And that is what I think will happen. And Corona and stock market, these are two different things. We have to think very differently. The problem comes when we interlink both of them and we think that whatever happens to Corona will happen to the stock market. In fact, whatever happens to the Corona will happen, but the stock market has already done much more than what Corona will do. $30 trillion of market cap worldwide has been slashed. I mean, I have sympathies for every single life in the world, but the price the world has paid already for this disease is staggering. So clearly, the comeback. So the Corona will go away. I mean, whether it takes 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, the world has more scientific power. A whole lot of system is there, and someday vaccine and everything will come. So we will get over Corona, but the economy and markets will come back. When the markets come back, so Corona is temporary, markets are permanent. Markets will see death of few weak companies. So markets are going to come back on the back of the same 50, 100 top companies. There is not going to be birth of a new bank. There is not going to be birth of a new Nestle. There is not birth of no birth of any broking company, any AMC. Nothing is going to happen. The same corporate world is going to come back. That's what has been the case in the past and in the future also. So, but 3 months back, we were getting things at a very, very elevated valuation. Today, we are getting at much more reasonable valuation. And if by chance there is a little more correction, or it gets prolonged, we'll get the valuations of these companies even coming more attractive. So I would think that I mean, this is the only time I feel bad about not having money. And so I don't have any cash in the portfolio. I mean, a percent here and there is different, but seriously, I don't have 10, 20% cash. That is a part of the strategy. So we know that at this point of time, we'll not have money, and we don't have money. And it is part of the thing, because out of 10 years, 8 years is a bull run, 2 years depression. So the start of these 2 years has happened. So we will keep feeling bad as the market goes down or remains depressed, because things are available at 30% lower, 40% lower, 50% lower. So whatever extra money comes, or we do switch operation, we shift from one bucket of value to another bucket of value and pack the portfolio with more values at current levels. So that will be the strategy. And so a lot of people, they end up asking me, should one buy large cap or mid cap in a small cap? I said, I mean, the ideas, I mean, the companies don't come to the portfolios looking at the size. If you want to buy a telecom company today, You are not going to get some mid cap and small cap companies. But there are very few businesses where you can actually go and buy. So ideas will come to you, not looking at the cap. So you have to look at the what you understand, the opportunity, the size of opportunity, and don't bother too much about the size of the cap. In fact, I would say you should have a diversified portfolio. In fact, I would not approach entire portfolio looking at the cap at all. I mean, I can have 100% small cap, mid cap, or I can have 100% large cap. So, and I don't think you can build a seriously large portfolio without having large caps. So, even if you have mix of 50-50, 65-35, I don't think that is a problem. Problem is what kind of stocks you have bought within large caps also or within mid caps also. And right now, the way environment is, I would say that larger company will, largest companies will definitely be better off in surviving, and even the governments and regulatory authorities, they will also seriously look at the larger companies interest than the smaller companies interest. That's how the world works. So I would think that all the survivors of this particular virus or the turbulent time will be reasonably well run, and larger companies than the smaller and very mid and small companies. So, so clearly, having more stress on the larger cap with a multi-cap kind of a strategy where it could be on the fund manager's choice, it could be 1/3 mid cap or 50% mid cap. That is completely fund manager's choice. But I would be a little more biased towards a larger cap in the portfolio than a mid and a small cap, because we don't know how long, what is going to be the extent of time. And let me tell you, no modeling is of any help. You read the Harvard University paper, and everybody is accepting that nobody has any clue. I mean, he might be having a very good degree, he might be called Goldman Sachs, he might be called anything, but nobody has any clue how to model the next 1.5 years of the economic event and the corporate earnings and things like that. So everybody will be wide off the mark. What you are buying is the franchise value of expecting that the same franchise value, once the new normal comes, you will be able to assert, and which is what is going to be the thing. The stronger companies, stronger banks, and stronger financial institutions, they will all be again coming back with the full force. But of course, so the companies which are strong in the past are going to remain strong in the future too, maybe even more stronger, and the business opportunities will be bigger, because some of the weaker ones either will lose market share or they will completely go out of the business. And when the business comes back, there'll be a lot more possibilities for the well-run companies than the companies which are not in good shape. So I would think I would buy a stronger franchise, bigger franchise, running franchise, and I would not change my investment style. What is important is to hold on to your investment style. You don't change the investment style at the top of the market and at the bottom of the market. Those are clear times, top and bottoms, when you really live by your investment style. So, so I would go still by trying to buy quality and growth, and of course at reasonable price, which were 2 months back to pick stocks at reasonable price. Probably will have more choice. Another thing is that should one go for very safe sectors? You know, because what has happened is the businesses which are very close to the essentiality of the consumer, like FMCG, pharma, they have remained broadly untouched, and in fact, pharma has in fact become much better, 10, 15, 20% higher than what it was even before this COVID crisis. So clearly, I mean, they were always good part of the portfolio, but I would also buy very clearly the ones which are impacted, like BFSI, where there is an indiscriminate selling of the stocks by, because that's what had done very well. It had become 40% of the entire index. So clearly, all the global fund managers, they had amassed a lot of these stocks, and since these companies had been continuously issuing shares to fund the capital growth, capital needs for the growth, clearly these stocks were there in very large quantity in all the global portfolios. So they came in hordes, because ultimate selling actual selling has been done by foreigners. So foreigners ended up selling all the popular, big, well-run financial services companies. And of course, they were also impacted by the leverage they have under their balance sheet. But I think the punishment has been quite disproportionate, and their franchise is still intact. There'll be some credit losses, additional credit losses. We don't know how much it will be, but my sense is they will again come back, and the growth for next 10, 15 years with the value migration in the private sector is going to continue. So I would not hesitate to buy well-run insurance company, well-run AMC, or well-run banking company, or even NBFCs at a very good price. So I would definitely have a good portion of my portfolio in them, because that is what is going to, that is where we are getting 10 rupee thing for clearly 5, 6 or 7 rupees. And so I would definitely pack some of the well-run these entities in my portfolio. What else? I think I'll close my remarks with this, and we have in any case, I think, good Q&A planned, and there I think more relevant subjects will come up and we'll be able to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ramdev. Dhruv sir, I think we'll take it forward. I'll unmute you.
Dhruv, you're on mute.
Yeah.
I've unmuted you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ramdev, for that, for those insights. I would just again like to touch that, the time is so unprecedented that the whole, how are you able, what you said, stick to your investment style and philosophy? Because most clients that now that we interact with, most people are worried, say you might have had a stated policy asset allocation. In most clients' places, clients are not, say, at 100% equity. They might be 50%, 60%, 70%. But today, the pressing concern is that in light of the sort of fear that is there, people are afraid of, wanting to stick to that stated asset allocation policy. So how is it that you are able to stick to 100%, sort of a framework all through in spite of these drawdowns? And what would you advise, people, the importance of, this remaining to asset allocation and not trying to time the markets?
See, not trying to time the market, though we have seen, nobody can time it. I mean, you have seen as you are as a wealth manager, and you have seen as much of the market, maybe 3-4 years less. But I mean, trying to time the market is mug's game. I mean, clearly that is not possible, and at least I'm not competent to do it, and I have not seen anybody doing it very successfully around us. There are so many very proficient and good guys. But as an investor, I have seen very few guys who have been consistently been able to buy at the bottom and sell at the top. No, they have not been able to do it. So I will not attempt. I mean, I've now given up on that. So that's a part of the first policy. Second is your allocation. Because I have maybe I have a running corporation where I have $100 million of free cash flow every year coming. So that gives me strength to play with my savings 100% in equity. So allocation is probably the services you provide. I'm not a kind of allocation expert, and you have to know the clients, and clients have taken whatever call they have taken. They would be 50% in equity or 60% in equity. This is the time I would say, don't cut the equity exposure. If you have 50% and that has come down to 40, the choice of course is to rebalance. I don't know whether to rebalance at this point of time, but clearly that whatever number of shares you had, that must not be reduced. I mean, this is not the time to book profit or book loss or reduce the allocation from your, this is like saying, I mean, the only model which comes to my mind, what will I do with Motilal Oswal? I mean, Motilal Oswal as a company, when you own the company, the issue is whether you should be selling at 1/10 of the price or 1/15 of the price. And I don't think any owner thinks of selling at these prices. In fact, the owners think of buying back their prices at these prices. But the behavior for the public listed company is just the other way around. We are not fearful about what should we do with our own companies. I mean, you ask your own clients, they might be owning whatever, a small business, big business. So if you ask them at this point of time when the stress is there, and the sellable price from 1,000 crores would have come down to say 300 or 400 crores. Are they willing to sell some portion of their equity to anybody at those reduced prices? They will say no. But their behavior towards, hello, can you hear me?
Yep. You can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, but behavior towards the listed equity is just the other way around, because probably the understanding of value of the listed equity is very little. Whereas when you run your business, you can see your free cash flow, and the potential of free cash flow way well into the future is extremely high. So the confidence comes for your own company from your understanding of the business, and that's why when you build your portfolio, you must build the portfolio of the companies which you understand. I mean, Buffett's those 4 lines. The first line is business. The what they would like to buy. The very first point is what they understand, and I think from there only the problem comes through, that people buy and sell things which they don't understand. At the price, obviously, if you don't understand the company, you cannot understand the underlying price also. So if you understand the company, and if you are allocated it properly, I don't see any reason just because there is a quotational loss from 100 to 50 or 100 to 60, 70. That should be the reason for changing the portfolio. That's how I think. And today I'm willing to correct if any portfolio mistakes we have done in good times. I'm willing to correct even in bad time. So it doesn't stop us from correcting that. If I'm over-allocated in bank, I need to correct it by 4-5%. I will do that. I mean, in fact, we did that while things were coming down. I mean, just on the eve of it, or first or second day, we thought that there is going to be redemptions. So first we cut it from the banks only. We cut 4% from the bank, and we said, let's sit with the money because people are going to ask for some of the liquidity. So, correcting your mistakes even now is not late, because what you're selling at 30% down, you'll be able to replace with some other sector at same 25-30% down. So that's fine.
Ramdev, Amit here.
Yes, Amit.
One of our clients who runs a capital intensive business, he had a question on saying that when do you think that the CapEx cycle will actually kick off again? Because you have capacity utilization at very low numbers. So what is the timeline, and when do you think that the CapEx cycle will actually kick off again?
Yeah, so I think that is going to be most delayed. That will be the last to come, because right now, in any case, economy was at 72% or maybe 75% of the capacity. Now with the reduced demands for various things, I think the first is to use the current capacity itself. So how much time it will take for the economy to come back to where it was before the Corona started in, say, Jan-Feb. That itself will take almost a year. I think this year is a complete washout. I don't think in 2021 any kind of a capex cycle will revive. It also depends how government handles. I mean, first thing is how fast this Corona fear goes away. That nobody has any timeline. We just got 21 days, another extension here for the lockdown. So, and then after May 5th or 6th, there is no guarantee that everything is out. So there will be still stress in the system, and government and everybody will go because nature of COVID is such that it can, if you are careless, again it can come back, which will be a even bigger disaster. So I would think that capex cycle is a last thing in the mind right now. So it will take some time, maybe 2 years. I mean, 2021, I hope by Q4 we are normal, and 21-22 will run in a normal phase. And then by end of 21-22, depending on the companies and the sectors, you will have if you're an automotive kind of thing, I don't think you are going to get to normalcy in 2021. It will be 21-22, and hence your capex cycle will be more like 22-23 in serious way.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Rupa ma'am, you have a question. Can you please go ahead?
So there is a question which one of the clients has asked, saying that when we recover, which is the sector which will lead the next bull run?
This is very popular. This we can do it doing the numbers for last 10 years. Who was the winner and So I have done from depth of 2008, I mean the bottom of 2008-9 to peak of 1920. I did one number, and guess which was the number one company? It is Bajaj Finserv, 46% compounded from bottom to top. So, it is very unassuming. And number two is Pidilite. Number three is Sri Cement. So I was trying to figure out, this is a common question. It comes in everybody's mind. But what is most common is that two things. One is that in next 10 years, you should be able to figure out where the growth is going to be. So if growth is going to be 20-25% in any company, you are well set irrespective of the sector. Second, where is the re-rating of the companies? Because the real fun, actually free treatment, free treat in the market is the P re-rating. You buy something at 10p and it finally sells at say 50p. That's where you're not paid for it actually. So earnings come at a cost, but P comes free of cost. So you have to figure out the companies where there could be a re-rating, and it doesn't come that often that I can sit here and tell you these are 10 companies or these are sectors where re-rating will happen. And let me tell you, what looks today right or wrong will not be right or wrong maybe 1 year henceforth or 2 years henceforth when things will be normal. Like pharmaceuticals, they look to be completely obvious case of a what you call renewed activity and leadership. I think the world is looking at India for pharmacy. That looks to be the kind of situation where even Mr. Trump had to call up Honorable Prime Minister to get this chloroquine phosphate. So that's the kind of nature of industry it is. But I think pharma will definitely have a resurgence. Good thing is that in last 4-5 years, domestic pharma, which was export oriented, had taken a lot of knock. If you look at the Lupin, Sun Pharma and all, so they had been beaten out of shape. So probably they will come off live. They have the scale, they have the global stature, distribution, manufacturing, and I think even the regulations will change worldwide in terms of some guys were saying that US may insist on production of drugs in US itself, rather than getting imported, because they would not like to be caught unaware next time and dependent on for essential drugs coming from India, China, and some other place. So you don't know what kind of regulations come out of this, and then so there will be a there will be some rewriting of the rules of businesses, and opportunities might look very different. How deeply world is hurt? So where is going to be the liquidity? Where is going to be the interest rates worldwide? Where is it going to be dollar rupee? How the geopolitical thing is going to play out? So a lot of things will be there in terms of how things shape up. But what I've seen is that the companies which are not corrected, they keep doing well. They've done well in good time. They'll keep doing in bad time, and hence they'll keep doing post good bad time also. So if company like all these franchise companies, they grow at about 12-13%, they'll keep doing 12-13% through the next 5, 10, 12 years. So if you don't want to take any stress and don't want to earn 5-7% more than the index, then you are well off buying those safe franchises. But if you want to make some quick, our desire is to make 20-25%. So there we have to buy the companies whose value is, where price is lower than the value, and where the growth is going to be guaranteed for next 10-15 years. And there I see BFSI, insurance companies, banking companies, NBFCs, they have a role to play. Then apart from that, even auto, where the lights are out right now. I don't know what numbers will come for April, maybe 80% correction, 70% correction. And I would like to see on 1st of May, when these numbers flash out, how many guys have courage to go and buy. Because, as I said, right now there is an explosion in the house. The bodies are yet to come out. So bodies will be visible in the monthly numbers and the quarterly numbers. And that will come as we go along. So when those bad numbers come, and I think a lot of people, they give up their confidence in the companies. And that is the point of time it will really hit the bottom. And at that point of time, your understanding will give you opportunity to buy some of these franchises, which will be available at a very low prices.
We have the next question from Mr. Paresh Karia. Paresh bhai, you have a question.
Sir, one question we keep getting from our clients is, most of the client exposure is in India portfolio. Is
Yes.
it time to diversify and get into some US equity through the US feeder funds which we have in India currently?
I think so. I mean, because one of the things I'm realizing sitting here is that the power of technology. I mean, I use technology, Excel sheet, and most of it is used by my assistants than me. I mean, I can't do my own tabulation. I can barely use my iPhone and mail, Outlook. But beyond that, I actually can't copy a file to some other place or something like that. So, but then I'm realizing the power of technology. Today, we are able to talk to so many people all over the world purely because of technology. So there is a massive role to, in fact, it looks to me that out of 3 meal, 1 meal, somebody says that whether you want a 4G connection or whether you want to forgo a meal, I think people might go for 4G connection. So I think that essentiality of technology and the role of technology, I'm realizing, and it's so effective. Apart from this lockdown, this Zoom calls and all for our appraisal, for interviewing, for a lot of group activity. I mean, if one CEO is traveling, that day that meeting cannot happen. Now it can happen. The guy might be in Hyderabad, the guy might be in New York, but let him come and log in and do the meeting. So I think technology has a huge role to play. We are always worried about end of the technology because that's been the case. There is dramatic rise and dramatic fall. What is the question? I forgot.
Investing in
The question was whether is it time to diversify some bit of portfolio and get into the US equity market through the US feeder funds?
Yeah, yes. So, a lot of these frontier technology companies are not in India. I mean, in the name of technology, we have our TCSs of the world, but the real technology companies are listed in NASDAQ, whether it is Chinese, whether it is European, whether it is American, they're all there in NASDAQ and all. So I would think that time has come for a global investing. We are too homebound, but not whole hog in the sense that, yes, 5-10% of the exposure can be taken. And now, thanks to ETFs, we also offer NASDAQ ETF. Next week, we are launching S&P 500. So you can buy as much as you want without any permission in rupee resources. So you can handle your portfolio very quickly and buy any of these indices in your portfolio, and you can get that global exposure, or at least US exposure. Global will take some time that you can do it through some other means, but at least you can get US exposure. Yes, I think the time has come for some amount of, but not because this 1 or 2 years, 1 year's problem, not because of Corona. It is a point of time in the global investing or investing itself that you should start looking at diversifying little bit from 100% Indian portfolio to India plus little bit US or whatever country you understand.
Okay. So there are a lot of questions from the participants. I'll just pick a few. I'm picking up a few questions from the clients from Northeast. As I'm from Northeast, I'm just picking up a few questions from the Northeast clients. Here, the main industry in Northeast is the cement and steel, and which depends largely on government spending. So when do you think the government spending will start back? Because that is the main industry that we have here in Northeast.
So, I mean, government is one of the mainstay. Right now, government's finances are worst hit for a month or two. So government gets about, at least central government gets about a percentage of GDP every month by way of taxes. They get about 11-12% of GDP through the year by way of taxes. So I'm saying 1 month forgone is almost 0.7-0.8% of GDP by way of taxes. So I think the biggest dislocation has happened in the government's own finances. That's my sense. Because if GST is cut, if the productions are down, clearly GST is down. Now, nobody knows how much GST is down, 30, 40, 50%. But the losses of 1 quarter will take away the profits of the entire year. And hence, direct taxes will be hit even deeper. Are you understanding what I'm saying? 3 months, if you are out of production in any manufacturing company, for the whole year, you are not going to make profit. Because the standing cost, fixed cost, interest cost is so high for the quarter that that it will take away the entire direct taxes or the corporate direct taxes for the year. So the impact, and corporate direct taxes are about 1/4 of the entire government direct tax collection. I mean 50% of direct tax collection. I'm saying direct tax collection will be 50% of the entire tax collection. Of that 50% is corporate tax. So government finances will be under stress beyond doubt. Now, globally, we have seen the kind of fiscal stimulus world is giving, anywhere between 10 to 25% of GDP. So government has not shown the willingness and understanding and the courage how much they will do. I mean, it still remains a suspense. So how do we manage the post-corona, the fiscal, I mean, the economy side of it? One is the corona itself, that they are doing brilliant job and probably one of the best in the world and proactive and all that. So that you leave aside. Now, handling the economy, that's where I think the main issue will come. How do you exit and how do you actually use this opportunity? Because you are basically economy of essentials, and you are not going to be, if you are say a month or month and a half, if you are down, your discretionary spend damage is going to be limited. So bringing back the Indian economy to the fire is much easier than bringing back US economy. I mean, how do you make people go to Las Vegas and gamble at this point of time? How many months it will take for the people to fly down and go to drink and gamble in Las Vegas? So that's not the nature of Indian economy. यहाँ पर सबका शादी जो है, see, main discretionary spend, one of the major discretionary spend is marriages. People have saved for last 25-30 years to do the marriage. So marriage will happen. In fact, they must incentivize the pandits for them to open a few more muhurats next year, so that crowd can be evened out. You know, somehow corona, you know, kind of a basket or something, so that instead of 30 muhurats, there should be 61, so that all the marriages can be settled in 1 year. Because these are all pending, and so you can get a natural stimulus. Second, I think people have saved in the houses. So most of the salaries are being intact. In fact, the firings which were to happen in March is not happening because on a humanitarian ground, that nobody is being fired despite he has not performed. So everybody's salary is lying at home. But these 2-3 months, people are consuming just Maggi noodle and rest of the money is lying in their bank. So the moment the door opens, I think there will be a natural stimulus to go out and consume. I mean, these are things which must be used by the government innovatively, and where it is required, where the, say like airline and other places, where there is actual damage, there they must come out with a completely, you know, lot of full bucket of money to restore them. So, I mean, the contour of fiscal measures, I think monetary is still on, RBI is accommodating whatever is the difficulties, and I'm sure none of the NBFCs or anybody is going to go down because of lack of liquidity or lack of moratorium or anything like that. All the solutions will be found. I have no doubt about it. The issue is only about the fiscal and how do we come out and how it will be calibrated. How do we convert this particular downtime for an opportunity to already slowing down economy? Today, some maaf hai, 3% maaf hai, 5% maaf hai, 6% maaf hai. Nobody is going to calibrate between 3.7 and 3.8. So I think this is an opportunity to bring back the economy, and you need a lot of thinking and a fantastic strategy to bring back the economy.
There's a question from Mr. Tushar who says that do you foresee the beginning of the end of globalization because of this event?
No, ऐसा कुछ नहीं होने. This is so interdependent, so interconnected. I mean, क्या करोगे यार? मतलब आपको ये chloroquine phosphate बनाने के लिए भी उसका intermediate is coming from China. And if China doesn't give you intermediate, you will not be able to do chloroquine phosphate from India, and Trump's request will go empty. So it is that interconnected, you know. So I mean, how many chains will break? And the fun of getting things at such a low prices, I mean, getting Zoom literally free, or getting these computers at some few thousand rupees. I mean, it's 3,000, 5,000 rupees, you get your 4G smartphone, 5,000 or 7,000 rupees full feature without any branding. I mean, this is possible only because of the global scale and global connectivity and global interdependence for the scale. So I mean, there can be some setback for some time, but the march of the technology, march of the consumerism and scale will happen. I'm not pessimistic on that.
There's a question on PSU companies. Do you see value in some of these PSU companies who have got very little debt and a lot of assured business model that they have?
I see deep value, but I'm hurt. You know, I bought few of them, and I've been completely, you know, kind of my face is red. So मेरी हिम्मत नहीं है, मतलब यानी बोलने की हिम्मत है, करने की हिम्मत नहीं है कि जाके और 4-5 के पी, मतलब यानी 6 के पी में लगा कि 6 तो बहुत का हो गया करके 6 का 4 हो गया, 4 का 3 हो गया. yield has gone from 4% to 8%. So, I mean, कुछ समझ में नहीं आता. मतलब like the way PSU has been handled by the authorities and even by the market, both combined. I mean, एक से बढ़ के एक. The managers have not done good job. I mean, authorities in the government have not managed their portfolio well, and I think the punishment by the market has been even more severe. I think the biggest wealth-destroying segment. See, there are three segments basically in the market. One is the private sector companies, second is the multinational, and third is the PSUs. So we do one chart in for last 15-20 years in our wealth creation study. So in 2004-5, 45% of net wealth created, say it was 20 lakh crores, of that about 9 to 10 lakhs will be created by PSU companies. Today it is reduced to 0, 1 or 2%. I have not done the number for March 2020, but I'm sure it must be negative. So, I mean, and they still are monopoly in large companies and reasonably well done, much better run than many of the private sector companies. And they have the size, they have all kinds of power. And yet market has decided to give a thumbs down. So maybe this is the time, ultimate time to buy into deep value, but I would stay away.
A few questions on the moment, the valuation that you say that sell your house and gold and buy equities. So how do you realize it is a time to buy into this crisis, and how do you find the courage actually to go out and buy at that? Because I remember once you was telling the story about you in 2003, you were not doing nothing and you were buying Tata Motors, sleeping in the office. So how do you get to know that this is the time to go out and buy all these deep value companies?
See, businesses will be there. As I said, there is not going to be any new business. And if there is no business, there is no economy. There is no prosperity. So this game has been going on for years, and this will go on. One corona cannot stall this. Creation of value through the stock market, that basic concept will continue. Now, at 60%, I'm telling you, it is much easier to talk right now on the Zoom, 60% correction. When 60% correction will come, everybody's face will look very different. I can tell you this. मतलब सबकी हवा गुल हो जाएगी, सबके वजन 10-10 किलो कम हो जाएंगे. So 60% correction में मतलब आपको, like I remember in 2007, yeah, post correction, sorry, 2003, Reliance was at 7p multiple. Okay, the entire market, do you remember that when we did the wealth creation study, the total market was 1.2 book. Price to book for the entire market, Nifty or that time Sensex was there. Sensex was 1.2. And most of the, and for 30, 40, 50 days, there were no new highs. I mean, the desire in life was to see 4, 5, 52 in new high. Forget about all-time new high. ऐसा अपने देखा ही नहीं है ऐसा टाइप का टाइम बताता हूँ मैं. वो तो टाइम, I hope it doesn't come. It breaks the back of a lot of people. Even it can break me also. It is much easier to talk right now when the index is at 9,000, 9,200. But it is very difficult to keep the you're composed at about 6,000, 6,200. It all depends on the corporate profit right now. See, our corporate profit is already bad. Our corporate profit to GDP before all this happened was about less than 3%. Now it looks for the current year, corporate profit to GDP could come below 2%. Maybe 1.8, 1.9. My sense is it will come below 2% for the year. Almost it is guaranteed because the first quarter is gone and hence this year's profit is gone. So my sense is that our corporate profit to GDP will come below 2%, and to 2%, if you give 20p, still market cap to GDP cannot be more than 40%. And today we are trading at market cap to GDP of 50%. Dhruv, you are getting me?
Yeah.
So 2% corporate profit to GDP and 20p, that gives me 40% to GDP. We are still at 50%. So I mean, there is a scope provided. See, but market is all about the future, not about so much about the past. We are looking at next 12 months, but market is not about 12 months. Market is about for next 10 years, 20 years. Corona will be forgotten as a bad dream after 12 months. That's what market believes. In fact, not after 12 months, after 3 months, at least Mr. Trump thinks that by the time election time comes, everything will be forgotten. That's how the world is right now behaving, and that's how there are corrections. I mean, the comeback is there in the markets. So So what is the question? I forgot. Why we got into this? What is your question?
When would you see a trigger that, bet the house? So if I can just add to what Pallav asked as a follow-on to that question, I do remember 2003 when we were doing the wealth creation study and the numbers that you did mention. And I remember I distinctly remember you saying, Dhruv, this is the time to bet the house.
Yeah.
And 2003, I do remember you saying, hey boss, price to book one and, Reliance, and this is the time to bet the house. So do you think, what would you look at today? Because from the earlier question, when on one side, when you look in terms of deep value and valuations, what you find deep value and valuations like 2003 is, maybe what you see is available in the PSU basket. Even the profit-making PSU baskets are available at, maybe price to book below 1 at high dividend yields. That is one segment of the basket. But I think your philosophy has moved completely from value to growth. And that is a sort of transition which has happened globally also. So would you, in today's environment, would you look at a valuation signal, or would you look at a trigger in terms of that the lockdown is going to get over, or a medical solution? What is that trigger that you would look to tell somebody to bet the house?
The best is to rely on what you know rather than what you don't know. See, what you don't know, उसके बारे में try करके फायदा नहीं. I have no edge in trying to figure out when will the corona medicine will come. I have no edge. I don't understand difference between vaccine and some medicine or something like that. So I don't think I'm going to rely on that. I will rely on understanding my business. And I believe that post-coronavirus, 6 months or 1 year henceforth, the world will be same. More or less, world will be normal place. And there the companies which are doing well today will do well. And these are few companies I understand. And say, simple company, I would say Nestle. Nestle is today trading at, say, or Liver is trading at, say, 60, 70 P multiple. If by chance, for some reason, it comes at 25, 30 P, 25 P or something like that, which is the historically, it is half the P of the whatever it was. And even if the plants are shut, I'm going to buy. I'm going to pile on. I'm going to sell whatever I have. I'll trim the damn portfolio by 30% and buy 10%, 15% like that. Because I'm not going to get ever at 25 P these. Because I have seen the history of 30, 40 years, these companies, they do come in intense adversity at these prices and then go back to 60, 65 P multiples. Okay. So it is, we must focus on what we know rather than what we don't know. Because a lot of discussions happen on unknown and unknowable. So I would rather go to the known and certainty. Certainty of goodness of the business and certainty of the solidity of the management and whatever is the price value gap. That's where I would rather bet than trying to figure out when will the corona get sorted, in what shape it will be sorted, how fast will come. Yes, global macro and this and that, I would not bother too much.
So if I can add a follow-on question, Ramdev, you don't look at the global macro, but between the known and the unknowable, I have seen that you have a lot of foresight in terms of how the business that you understand can grow, dramatically, like in the case of Bharti. So what you mentioned, that technology is becoming very important, and technology is providing a lot of productivity. So do you see that sort of a trend, or the sort of a business emerging in India? We know that you have the FANGs over there in US, but in the Indian space, like the last rally was led by the whole banking NBFC sector. And typically we've seen that the leader of the last sort of rally, you have something new emerging. So which areas where you're seeing in the businesses where you can foresee that there is a dramatic shift happening? Like I'm saying, one could be in the digital space, any areas, any companies that you see. Second could be something like in the chemical and pharmaceutical space, where because of the whole issue of the trade war and the China factor, whether manufacturing, whether you see those trends in some of the businesses that you are watching, that business is likely to shift to India.
Could be, see, Dhruv, this could be Y2K movement for manufacturing in India. For a lot of things. I mean, how the world takes so-called, Chinese dominance and so geopolitical balance. So, I mean, India is not good in seizing the opportunity unless it is thrown on them. Like, see, one of the thing about software, one of the biggest success story I have seen in India in the global space is software and pharma. But more dominant is the software, which is still on. So in that, it was the migration from Boston to Bangalore. So the gap between the cost and the new cost, the business model was very simple. In Boston, it is costing $60 per hour. In Bangalore, it was costing $5 to $6. So clearly, that gradient was very clear. But right now, when you're saying China to India, the gap is not that much. Actually, price is ulta. But if China can produce for $10, we'll produce for $11. I mean, all put together, logistic and other thing put together, or maybe $10 itself. There is not going to be much gap between Indian cost of production and Chinese cost of production. It is the preference of the client that I want to diversify from China to India. So I'll give the same price, but instead of 100% taking from one source in China, I'll take something from India. I mean, this is a broad framework. I mean, it could be somewhat different, but because scale is with them, technology is with them, and they have the depreciated plant also, and they have a very supportive government, very low interest rate. They have very stable currency. So there are a lot of things are going for the entrepreneur over there. Whereas in India, currency is very weak. You have very limited support from the government. Bureaucracy is not very supportive of the businesses. And ground reality is very, very different from for businesses than in China. So when the value migrates from China to India, the job is far more tougher than when value migrates from America to India. So in value migration process, I would like to see the bucket coming from US to India, because there we have the fantastic opportunity. And then in technology, typically it is the global value coming to India if you can find a company, because that cost advantage of India of $3-4 per hour still remains, and currency being weak, and we are very good in this. I mean, our this mathematical mind is very, very helpful. And now all the people in last 20 years in Hyderabad, Gurgaon, Bangalore, Chennai, I mean, all the things world over it is done. The damn thing is designed somewhere here. So there are very complex set of entrepreneurs and the designers and all kinds of guys are there. So if I find a company which is technology company in India operating at Indian cost for the global opportunities, I mean, those kind of companies can be pretty very, very large. Like one of the companies we have invested in medical innovation in Goa for testing. It's a world-class innovation, but will they be able to scale up in this COVID test and whole TB and all? So the technology innovation, now the Indians are looking at, I'm seeing in private equity space, a lot of Indians are, they're actually coming from US and using their understanding of US and the global markets and using the domestic cost base to scale up, slowly, and then catering to the global customers. So there in this technology space, I see a lot of opportunities. I mean, away from the so-called services business,
Ramdev sir, Amit here. Two questions on, one is on real estate. How do you see real estate as a sector? And the second one is on aviation. When do you see real estate and aviation actually coming back, and how they will react?
Real estate was never my favorite, even in best of the time, because I thought the books were written in Lonavala. So, अभी तो books का छोड़ो, अभी तो business का ही लफड़ा हो गया. So I don't know. I mean, there are RERA and then the cost structure and then the leverage, and now it is being discretionary. So, but I think the guys who have managed themselves well in terms of their balance sheet, and they have actually got their customers, because the demand for houses and offices will only grow. And if the interest rate goes down, then it will become even more interesting. Provided you have the product which are demanded by the client. I think one of the problem for real estate, what I watch from my office, 530 towers staring at me, incomplete, is that the products are wrong products in the sense that they are not the products which are in demand or which is not affordable. And they are not even mortgageable products in the sense that if you have a house which is 15, 20 crores or 25 crores single ticket, I mean, you can't take mortgage at 8% and rent it out at 2% or 3% of the capital cost. So clearly, a lot of these real estate developers are stuck with the wrong product profile, and hence it will take quite some time for them to liquidate this portfolio. And hence, I think government, because it's a very large employment generating kind of segment. So what will go, I think government should address this particular sector very, very deeply. Here I think it will have a huge impact on the employment generating capability of the sector. And the requirement is not so much of it is more to do with the relief in liquidity and maybe the cost of money or maybe some stamp duty here and there. But I think government has a lot of role to play here.
And aviation, sir?
And yeah, aviation, I think I was a big fan of Indigo here, and it is a wonderful company, and even now it remains a wonderful company. Probably one company which will survive this onslaught is going to be Indigo in India. Rest all worldwide. And actually, I was after buying, and after some time, I realized it has so many moving parts, so volatile, a sector where there is oil price volatility, there is a currency volatility, there is a load factor volatility, there is a competitive volatility. So it is the most volatile kind of a business. And I believe Buffett changes. I mean, he had a long held view till 5-6 years back that it is the worst industry in the world. And then he got sucked into buying all 5 of them in the US. And he made a very significant investment in all the companies, almost 10%, 10% each of all the companies. And now I've heard that he's selling. So I think this is second coming for even Buffett in aviation. Every aviation company is bankrupt today, particularly the global carriers. They have no business. So I think it is the worst possible business model one can ever have.
So there's a lot of interest on the pharma side. There are a lot of questions on the pharma sector. How do you see it coming up? So look, they've been going through a very bad phase over the last 5 years. So how do you see the pharma sector actually going forward from here?
See, pharma is not a very generic kind of stuff. Every company has a different strategy. They have different portfolio, addressing to different markets and different studies altogether. In the sense that some of them are completely old drugs. One good thing about pharmaceutical is that the drugs have long life, in the sense that 100 years, 120 years, 140 years. Like paracetamol is 140-year-old drug and it's still going very strong. So how do you make money out of that? So clearly, so there is an opportunity everywhere. There is an opportunity on the innovation side, like today to come out with a vaccine or something for the corona, very quickly scale it up and become a global pharma power. So that's one opportunity where I would say at the current budget, that may not be the big opportunity, but eventually Indian pharma would like to walk in there. Second is that what we do for global generics, the world buys generics from India, where I see a huge opportunity and continuing opportunity. We have done a wonderful job. Top 3 or 4 companies out of top 10 in the world are Indians and they're still scaling up. So, but because of US is the biggest, most profitable and largest generic market in the world. And there, I think there was a lot of structural change in their distribution and all. So the profitability of Indian pharmaceutical companies have come down, not evaporated, but come down. And hence market had beaten them down quite a bit. Now, after this corona, does anything change in terms of US FDA's behavior towards Indian companies getting very quick approvals, or what all changes? I don't know. But it has to be, I think there is a lot of potential, and Indian markets are in any case there. So the combination of 50-60% Indian sales and 40-50% global sales, I think that will give you a very good very well balanced companies, well run companies, and I think quite a few of them are very reasonably priced right now. So, but it is a very company specific research you have to read.
The questions on allocations. Suppose somebody has a 100 rupees with him right now and he has sold it at the highs and he has not invested right till now. So how should he allocate, sir, going forward?
I should learn from him यार कि कैसे टॉप में बेचने का और कैसे बॉटम बनाने का. अभी एक तो पहली बात, he should not be in the call. That क्योंकि हम उसको इतना डराएंगे, भाषण देंगे कि वो खुद कंफ्यूज हो जाएगा. Because we are not the guys who told us to sell at the top, and he has been able to do it. So he must go by his own thought process, and in fact, he should inform us when he thinks that bottom has been made, so that we can also go and buy with him something. So he's the guru for us. He's the head of us. उनको क्या हम guide करेंगे?
Dhruv sir, your question.
Dhruv, you're muted. Yeah.
So Ramdev, of course, you normally are focused on individual companies, but you know this whole global thing which you disregard. But one of the things we've discussed at times is this whole thing of the global liquidity was already there, the huge overhang the last 10, 11 years. And now, are you surprised with the extent of the sort of infusion that the Fed is doing and the US government is doing? Are you surprised, and what do you think? What do you make of it? You know, will it? I mean, to my mind, will it again lead to the sort of run that you had the last 10 years because of that whole sort of global excess liquidity?
Yeah. So actually, 2003, 2008 was the same issue. That Greenspan opened the tap for post 9/11. He opened the tap of monetary expansion, and then rise of commodity, rise of China. I mean, combination of earnings growth and liquidity. That was a fantastic mixture worldwide. So how? I mean, right now, America and everybody is struggling with the Corona thing. I mean, to contain the economy. But once they come on top of it, I mean, they have shown their fiscal and monetary stance. But I think this global liquidity will, because if you look at the asset classes, where will the global savings go? There is no other place than equities anywhere in the world, actually. Because on the debt side, it's a zero return kind of situation. At least in India, you get 3, 4, 5%. But बाकी जगह तो कुछ है ही नहीं. So for keeping money, they are asking for the money. So clearly, there is a zero return on the debt side. Real estate is a very specialized, low liquidity kind of situation. I don't know how the world real market is. In India, it is very bad. Liquidity is always an issue in real estate anywhere in the world. So by default, equity and quality equity becomes the place. Now in equity, I mean, as Buffett keeps giving this model, that between bond and equity, if bond is at, I mean, when he used to talk, bond used to be still at 2-3%. Now bond is at 1%. True. So my 10-year paper is literally trading at 100p, and Dow is trading at 16p. What do I buy? So correct. Obviously, when these questions will come, this as per this framework, the only ultimate asset class is going to be equities. And now India is also trading at 16, 17 times. We are no more at 25, 30. So I think that low global, and what will happen is that this turn of events, as the confidence comes in risk assets at some point of time, the kind of money, and I read somewhere yesterday, some 17 or 20 billion dollars have flowed in a week into ETFs in US. So clearly, because people have been caught unaware and economy was at a full stream. So everybody thinks that damage will be temporary and it will be very shallow. And government has responded with such a monetary bazooka that, see, one of the things is that global center bankers are learning from every collapse. I mean, in 1927-30, the collapse became very bad because monetary response just the opposite. They tightened the money market. And hence, jo nahi mara tha wo 2008 also, people said that response is good, but it was not fast enough. you know. And now learning from that, because all the jokers of that particular collapse, they're still around in some office or other. So from there, they know that mistakes which they committed in 2008, they must not commit now. And that's why even without asking for it, they came out with the full flow of I mean, literally 150 basis point cut in the interest rate, and $4.5 trillion of buyback of the expansion of this thing, balance sheet. So I think इससे ज़्यादा कुछ government कर नहीं सकती थी, and hence the liquidity. I mean, right now money is going in everybody's pocket. Nobody is spending. Consumer is still staying at home. Consumers will come out. Keep watching for that. The moment consumers come out, the feel good will come, and markets will slowly start responding, and consumers will forget everything after a few months of virus like a swan flu. People will forget this one also. And once people forget, and we again start going to Omaha for our seminar. I hope next year we do it. This year, of course, he has this thing. So by that time, I'm quite sure markets will be at very different levels, because the low cost of liquidity and no alternative for any kind of investment. I think equities will be in top favorite worldwide, and what happens in US happens in India directionally. So if by chance US markets does very well, despite my corporate profit to GDP is lowest at 2%, still that 40, 50, 100 corporations which are in the forefront, that markets will be narrow, but index can be very high.
Rupa ma'am, you have a question.
Sir, I have a question. Now, Dhruv asked saying that US has pumped in so much of trillions of dollars. When do we see in India that bazooka kind of fiscal and the monetary stimulus that we want to?
आपका नाम एकदम perfect है. You must go to Delhi and speak to our honorable finance minister. Because I think that is one thing which is suspense, that how big will be. In fact, I heard a very intelligent answer for this from one or two speakers from Delhi. And they said that we are trying to put the economy on a slow mode. We are giving depression to the economy in a lockdown. We don't want too much of activity picking up in the economy. And hence, the fiscal initiative has been delayed. I mean, maybe it was a cover up or whatever, but it looked very intelligent. They said, as the lockdown is lifted, the fiscal bazooka will come in India. That's what they said. The timing of fiscal will be around that time. So from tomorrow onwards, as the partial lockdown goes down, or maybe after a week, when this thing goes down, some whether 2%, 3% of, even 2-3% is very large. I mean, I can't believe that it will be even 2-3%. 2% is, I mean, a percentage is about 2 lakh crores. So we have not seen anything like that. But whatever comes, it will come. I mean, I don't think we are going to go without that. Otherwise, we'll be left behind in the race.
Sir, one question on gold. People have been asking about moving money from. I know that's something to laugh off, but people have been really asking about making some investments in gold and maybe 5-10%. And I know that will be actually there in the households already, of 5% or 10% allocation into households. But this is more of crisis of confidence than crisis in financial markets, and therefore people are asking for gold as an alternative. So what's your view on gold, sir?
मेरा view क्या सुनोगे यार gold, but I'm surprised by the price movement of gold in last 10 years. It has done, I think, better than index with least possible volatility. So clearly, I used to think it's ये मिट्टी है, कचरा है, and why bother about them करके. But I think some amount of stability, or I'll not buy, but now with the RBI gold bonds, it is you also yield 2.5% on gold. So it's a financial asset. It is no more a physical gold. It is just some portion in that. It's more like a capital. It is not even capital guaranteed, but I mean, the history tells me that it is capital guaranteed, at least in India. because the continuous depreciation of India, rupee and so-called gold hawks who are there, who are saying that it is going to go to $10,000 or whatever. So I'm not in that camp, but I mean, you can, just for your satisfaction, you can buy some gold bonds.
Okay, and sir, food processing industry, do you think that the food processing industry will take a fillip from this?
When they were doing well, they'll do even better. I mean, coronavirus doesn't impact them negatively. So their business remains as usual, and they will do well depending on what they do, how well they do. I didn't see the corona thing is just a 6 months bad dream. इसके बाद सब वही वही हो जाने वाला जैसे पहले था. जो तकलीफ आपको पहले थी वो भी रहेगी, और यदि अपॉर्चुनिटी पहले था तो probably opportunity will be little bigger, but that's about it.
Thank you, sir.
On a lighter note, sir, आप वो रूपा मैम को फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर के लिए बोल रहे थे. अभी लास्ट मंथ मैम रूपा मैम वाज इन गुवाहाटी एंड फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर भी गुवाहाटी थी. The only person the finance minister spoke was to Rupa ma'am. Actually, हम लोग सब मिले थे तो the only person she spoke was with Rupa ma'am. और किसी से बात ही नहीं किया.
I know most qualified person is her only.
There are a lot more questions. I don't think we can take most. Dhruv sir, I think it will be good if you can close it.
So thank you, Ramdev, for a wonderful and I think very lively session. I think a lot of questions were there. Unfortunately, not able to answer, but I think your optimism and faith and what your journey has been, I think it will give the faith to our clients to remain invested. And as you said, most likely it's going to be a bad dream. We all wish that in the next 3 to 6 months, it does turn out to be just a dream. And wishing everybody to be safe. Wish everybody.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, of course.
Ramdev sir, on the liquidity in corporates, I mean, many corporates don't have money to run their businesses. If you look at the balance sheets, will this problem actually aggravate the issue in debt? Like India on the mutual fund side has got about 70% money in debt. How do you see this translating into a crisis in debt, if at all, because of the lack of liquidity on the balance sheets and no credit offtake there?
So I don't know about the mutual fund side of it, debt mutual fund side, that Dhruv and Rupa and all will know better, and what's happening there. And that's a different world altogether. I believe there is a lot of turmoil there. So I have no knowledge nor insights into that. Probably you have more knowledge about that. But I think addressing the liquidity at individual company level, there's a lot of representation, and I mean, RBI wants definitely that liquidity to flow. I mean, reverse repo. I mean, I've been telling the guys for a very long time, this window of reverse repo and repo which में जो 1.5% का gap था, उसमें everybody was just parking with a bank, and now I think they've cut it by 90 basis point. I heard from somewhere they're going to completely abolish that corridor itself, so that banks are forced to lend. So some kind of a and then I think there is some concept of credit guarantee coming in the sense that either government directly buys the paper, like what the Fed is doing, all the junk bond also they're willing to buy. Government so far in India has been able to intervene through the banks. They're not, RBI is directly not going in. So I think this is an extraordinary situation. What extra measures come to not only liquidity is there, but how does the liquidity find I think that architecture has to be tackled, and I'm sure as the time passes, more and more steps will be taken. Okay, Dhruv?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you everybody for joining, and thank you for all your words of wisdom.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. There's an event on Saturday with a pharma analyst. We have Shailesh Raj Bhan, who's a fund manager with Nippon Asset Management. People who have got questions on pharma can actually come and ask on Saturday.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.